Johnny Cash has left behind more than just music. Hidden in boxes and drawers at his estate were letters, poems, and handwritten notes that nobody had ever seen. Some fans on Reddit have been discussing what might be surfacing, with one user reportedly dropping major insights and secret revelations after recently finding a letter from Johnny Cash to such a person that no one might have ever thought of. All of the things in that letter still stand true to this day. This letter hides some unique secrets and insights into the vintage times. Cash had also left behind a treasure trove of writings that reveal a side of him the world never knew. The man in black was always private about his personal struggles, but these discovered writings tell a different story than the one we got from interviews and his public image. They show a man who wrestled with his demons until the very end, who never stopped loving June Carter, and who poured his deepest thoughts onto paper when he couldn't say them out loud. Before we go deeper into what these letters reveal to whom they were written, let's understand who Johnny Cash really was. He was born J.R. Cash on February 26, 1932, and his parents, Ray and Carrie Cash, were cotton farmers who worked land they didn't own. When Johnny was 3, the family moved to Dyess, Arkansas as part of a government resettlement program during the Great Depression. They got 20 acres and a small house. Johnny was one of 7 children. His brother Jack was his closest friend. They'd worked the cotton fields together, and Jack would talk about becoming a preacher someday. On May 12, 1944, Jack was working at the high school, cutting oak trees into fence posts with a table saw. The saw caught him and nearly killed him. Jack held on for 8 days before he on May 20th. Johnny was 12 years old. According to Johnny's daughter Kathy, their father Ray blamed Johnny for Jack's death. He'd say harsh things when he was drinking. Johnny carried that guilt for the rest of his life. It shaped everything about him, from his faith to his music to his struggles with pills. Johnny joined the Air Force in 1950, right after high school. They stationed him in Germany, where he bought his first guitar for $5. When he got out in 1954, he moved to Memphis and married Vivian Liberto. They'd been writing letters back and forth while he was overseas. He worked as an appliance salesman during the day and practiced guitar at night. In 1955, he auditioned for Sam Phillips at Sun Records. Phillips didn't want gospel music, so Johnny came back with Hey Porter and Cry, Cry, Cry. Phillips signed him immediately. By 1956, Johnny was touring with Elvis Presley and Jerry Lee Lewis. That's when the started. Truck drivers used ambulance to stay awake, and musicians picked up the habit. He met June Carter in 1956 backstage at the Grand Ole Opry. She was already famous as part of the Carter family. Both were married to other people at the time, but something started between them that night. The 1960s were brutal for Johnny. He was taking fistfuls of pills every day, ambulance to stay awake, barbiturates to sleep. Vivian filed for divorce in 1966. They had 4 daughters together, Roseanne, Kathy, Cindy, and Tara. Now here's where the letters start painting a fuller picture. Years after Johnny Cash's death, one of his hidden letters has surfaced, and it reveals what many always suspected. In this private note to Chris Christopherson, Cash seemed to see the future unfolding before it happened to Faker. He wrote about a young man going for a poet, chasing meaning through struggle and song, verse by verse. Johnny describes Chris's journey, from flying helicopters to writing lines as slick as the blades, to finally finding the world ready to listen. But there's something deeper in his words, almost like a warning wrapped in admiration. And in the end, Cash leaves a chillingly prophetic line. Hell, I heard that song 5 years ago. It's as if he knew fame would come, but too late. This hidden letter doesn't just show Johnny's wisdom. It uncovers the truth he always knew about the cost of being an artist. It also painted a fascinating picture of their friendship. His son, John Carter Cash, had also discovered what he called a monstrous amassment of things. Handwritten letters, poems, and documents spanning Johnny's entire life. Some of these were published in a 2016 book called Forever Words, The Unknown Poems, edited by Pulitzer Prize-winning poet Paul Muldoon. In 2018, those poems were turned into an album called Johnny Cash, forever words. Artists like Willie Nelson, Chris Christopherson, Elvis Costello, and Johnny's daughter, Rosanne Cash, set his words to music. According to NPR, there were approximately 70 unpublished poems and letters discovered after his demise. One of the most revealing documents is a letter Johnny wrote to himself on December 31st, 1968. For many years, Cash would write himself letters on the last day of the year, summarizing what happened and looking ahead. The 1968 letter is particularly important because that year changed his life. He recorded at Folsom Prison in January, proposed to June Carter in February, and married her on March 1st in Franklin, Kentucky. According to John Carter Cash in his book House of Cash, these year-end letters functioned like personal inventories. In the 1968 letter, Johnny wrote between 8:35 and 9 to 10 p.m. on House of Cash stationery. He listed everything important that happened that year: the Folsom Prison concert, his marriage to June, a trip to Israel where he prayed at holy sites. He called 1968 the best year of his 36 years of life, but the letter also hints at struggles. He mentioned recovery, though he didn't specify from what. Biographer Robert Hilburn, who wrote Johnny Cash, The Life in 2013, discovered that many of Cash's redemption stories were exaggerated. The famous Nickajack Cave unaliving attempt in 1967, where Johnny supposedly found God and quit addiction, Hilburn found that the cave was underwater at that time. The truth is messier than the legend. June Carter did help Johnny get cleaner, but he never fully beat his addiction. According to multiple sources, June spent decades flushing his overused stuff down the toilet and keeping him away from that junk. But it was a constant battle, not a one-time victory. One of the most famous letters that survived is one Johnny wrote to June for her 65th birthday on June 23, 1994. He wrote it while he was in Odense, Denmark. The letter was featured in John Carter Cash's 2011 book, House of Cash, and in 2015, readers of the British Daily Mail voted it the greatest love letter of all time. It beat letters from Napoleon, Winston Churchill, and John Keats. In the letter, Johnny wrote about getting old together with June. He said they irritated each other sometimes and maybe took each other for granted. But then he'd meditate on it and realize how lucky he was to share his life with the greatest woman he ever met. He told her she was still fascinating and inspiring, that she was the #1 earthly reason for his existence. He signed it, "Happy Birthday, Princess." That letter tells you everything about Johnny and June's relationship. It wasn't perfect. They fought. They had hard times. But underneath everything was this deep, lasting love that held them together for 35 years. The poems that were published after his demise show a different side of Cash, too. According to Rolling Stone, the poems covered love, mortality, addiction, humor, spirituality, pain, wonder, hope, heartbreak, freedom, and resignation. One poem called Going, Going, Gone talks about addiction in stark terms. It lists all the ways to get poison into your system: liquid, tablet, capsule, powder, fumes, smoke, vapor. John Carter Cash said looking through all those writings was like going to Johnny Cash Graduate School. They date the documents by looking at details. One piece had a Delta Airlines logo that was only used between 1958 and 1959. Johnny's handwriting also changed consistently through the years, which helped them figure out when things were written. Some of the poems became songs on the Forever Words album. Gold All Over the Ground, sung by Brad Paisley, came from a 1967 poem Johnny wrote for June before they were publicly dating. To June This Morning, performed by Rustin Kelly and Casey Musgraves, came from an actual letter Johnny wrote to June in February 1970 when she was 8 months pregnant with John Carter. According to Kelly, when John Carter Cash saw that poem for the first time, he immediately welled up because of the personal significance. These weren't polished pieces meant for publication. They were raw thoughts Johnny put on paper for himself. That's what makes them so powerful. In public, Cash projected this image of the reformed outlaw who found redemption. In private, his writings show he was still fighting the same battles over and over. June passed away on May 15, 2003, from complications after heart surgery. She was 73 years old. Johnny was there when it happened. According to June's daughter, Carlene Carter, Johnny stopped talking much after that. He'd sit in his chair and look out the window at the lake behind their property. Johnny only lived 4 more months. He passed on September 12, 2003, at Baptist Hospital in Nashville. The official cause was complications from diabetes, but everyone knew the real reason. He passed from a broken heart. More than 1,000 people attended his funeral at First Baptist Church in Hendersonville. They buried him next to June at Hendersonville Memory Gardens. According to Wikipedia and multiple biographies, June had attempted to keep Cash off the addiction throughout their entire marriage. After June's demise, Cash believed his only reason for living was his music. He made it 4 months before he followed her. The last poem Johnny ever wrote was called Forever, and it's recited by Chris Christopherson on the Forever Words album, with Willie Nelson playing acoustic guitar. Both were lifelong friends of Cash. That poem, whatever it said, was his final piece of writing. What these discovered writings confirm is what many people suspected but couldn't prove. Johnny Cash never fully conquered his demons. He managed them. He had good periods and bad periods. The guilt about his brother Jack, the pain of his first family breaking up, the constant pull of addiction, none of that ever really left him. But here's what else the letters and poems show. Johnny kept trying. He kept writing. He kept creating. He kept loving June with everything he had. Even when he fell down, he got back up. That's not weakness. That's strength. The image we had of Johnny Cash as the man in black who found redemption and lived happily ever after, that's not wrong. It's just incomplete. The real Johnny Cash was more complicated and more human than that. He was a man who fought his battles every single day, who loved deeply and hurt deeply, who made mistakes and tried to make them right. John Carter Cash made the decision to keep most of the personal letters private. He released excerpts and published some of the poems, but he said some things needed to stay between family. According to his interview with the line of Best Fit in 2018, he wanted to focus on the words and the mystery. He said the more they dug, the more mystery they found. These writings don't diminish Johnny Cash's legacy. They make it more real. They show us that staying sober and staying faithful and staying creative isn't about winning one big battle. It's about showing up every day and fighting again. Some days you win, some days you lose, but you keep showing up. The fact that Johnny wrote these things down at all tells you something important. He wasn't running from the truth, he was documenting it. Maybe he hoped writing would help him understand himself. Maybe he knew that someday someone would find them and see who he really was beneath the legend, but that recently discovered letters' authenticity hasn't been fully confirmed yet by the official sources. What do you think about these discoveries? Does knowing about Johnny's continued struggles change how you see his music, or does it make his story even more powerful? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to hear more untold stories about country music's biggest legends, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications.